Good Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for hopping on NCSA Live. I'm David Kamisek from Next College Student Athlete. We appreciate you tuning in every Tuesday to hopefully learn a little bit about the recruiting process. We appreciate you watching us, whatever platform you're on, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're watching us these days, YouTube, anywhere and everywhere just about. But today we're going to focus on a specific topic in the recruiting process, but certainly want you all to contribute. We like to be challenged with questions, so anything that's on your mind, whether it be about the specific topic we're talking about or anything in the grand scheme of recruiting, certainly jot down there at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many as we can here over the next half hour. We're going to start out talking about contacting college coaches and three big tips in terms of what you can be doing for emailing coaches, calling coaches, reaching out to coaches via social media. So a lot of good tips coming our way. And to do that, we have one of our recruiting managers, Kyle Winters, joining us as well. Kyle, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, David. Delighted to be here with you again.
The importance of contacting coaches. I think a lot of times families we talk to kind of take the sit back and wait approach. We know in our world that's not the best approach. The great part of starting the recruiting process early is you can be really emailing, reaching out to coaches at any point.
Yeah, probably still the biggest misconception in the recruiting process is that if you're good enough, if you're smart enough, college coaches are going to find you. Or if you play for a travel team or you play tournaments, that coaches are just going to happen to find you. If you do well, that you're going to somehow get found. The coach is going to show up at your games. It's really just not likely. It just doesn't happen that often for student athletes these days. There's way too many student athletes out there, way too few college coaches. So, this is all about what you need to do to get in contact with those coaches and drive them to come watch you. So first and foremost, we're talking about emailing college coaches. The subject line is key. The subject line is going to be your introduction to a college coach. You're going to want something that jumps off the page and prompts them to want to open your email. When they're getting 100 or 1,000 emails a week, they're going to filter out which emails they open, which ones they don't. If they have an email that says college recruiting or college baseball, something like that, they're probably going to move that to the side. But if they see an email that has your grad year, your position, any specific measurables that stand out, like I run a 6.560, location, your grades, anything that stands out is going to be the first tip. The first thing that you need to do as far as trying to jump off the page for a college coach. From there, obviously you want your email to be something that is going to resonate with the coach. You don't want to send out a form letter just that's going to be readable for every single college coach and really doesn't have any sort of personalization to it. You don't want something that college coach would say, well, you just printed off 1,000 of these and sent them to every single coach across the country. So you're going to want to know about the school, about the coach, about their program, do some research, take a little bit of time to learn a little bit more about them, make it something that's going to be important to them, and then finally email the right person. We can probably bring up a demo right now that I can kind of walk through. That'll show you guys our message center here at NCSA, where we can show how you as a student athlete or as a parent would be able to email a college coach. You guys can see the contacts here on the left side of things. You can see that we're able to pull up a specific school. And then a big key of that is going to be sending that email, obviously, and then picking the right person, which is not necessarily complicated, but it is important to make sure that you're not emailing someone who's not going to be looking at your email. When it comes to recruiting, most of the time, the assistant coaches, you guys can see here, they're going to be the ones who are doing more of the recruiting and reporting up to the head coach and trying to get the information in front of them from there. Worst comes to worst, it's always a great idea to email all the coaches, but you're going to want to start with your position or an assistant coach as a starting point to kind of get your foot in the front door.
Yeah, and really the benefit of starting this process early is just that. As a freshman in high school, you can proactively reach out to any college coach in the country. You don't have to wait for coaches to initiate contact with you. So if I'm a freshman in high school right now, I can send out that email to any college coach in the country I want. Now, coaches based on the division level, based on the sport, they have restrictions in terms of how and when they can reach out to a student athlete directly. But this is really a big benefit of starting the process early. And again, emailing is one way of doing so. Again, so much of technology these days, so much of communication is done through email. So again, the subject line, like Kyle talked about, is key. Keep it personal, right? Find something about that university, about that program, about that coach that's specific to why you are interested in that program. And then, as Kyle mentioned, emailing the right person. You don't want to be sending out an email to the wrong person and they never even get it at all. And again, you can do this through your personal account. It does take a little bit of a guessing game because you're not necessarily able to see, did this coach open my email? Did this coach watch my video? The great thing about the NCSA profile and the message center that Kyle just walked through is you're able to kind of track that information. You're able to see, okay, who's opened my email, who's watched my video, who's then maybe following me as a college coach. So there's a big benefit to having your NCSA profile set up and being able to message through that, because again, it does take some of the guessing game out of it. If you haven't started your NCSA profile yet, ncsasports.org is our website. Great place to build that online presence and again, have that sort of one-stop shop for college coaches. But it's not just, Kyle, important to have a profile, have your information online. Again, coaches may find it, but for the most part, the kids that are taking that proactive approach, they're going to have more bang for the buck. We talked about emailing coaches, a little bit easier this day and age. Something that's maybe a little bit more challenging for student athletes these days is actually picking up the phone and calling somebody, which certainly can be intimidating. But what tips do you have for student athletes, for families, in terms of when they actually pick up the phone and try to call a college coach?
Yeah, it's absolutely a daunting process, especially with the way our world's set up now, that it's easier to send a text message than pick up the phone and call someone. And kids aren't used to talking to people anymore these days. So just kind of lay out a couple thoughts, and we'll go into a little bit more detail around them. But first and foremost, do not cold call. Don't cold call a coach. Come prepared with questions. If they don't answer, make sure you're leaving a quality voicemail, which probably means you're going to be doing a little bit of preparation, maybe doing some mock voicemails on the front end. So taking a step back, do not cold call. You're not going to want to call a coach out of the blue and expect them to answer and expect to have a conversation with them. They're probably not going to answer. They don't want to have a conversation with someone they've never heard of, they don't know anything about. They don't typically just answer phone calls from random numbers they don't see, just like everybody else in the world. You see a phone call from someone you don't know who it is, they're not going to probably answer that phone call. So get an email to them first. That's why we kind of led with that. Get an email out to them, get your video in front of them, get your profile in front of them. Let them know who you are first and foremost, and then you can follow with a conversation, a phone call to drive them, letting them know that, hey, I sent you an email of my profile, my video, my grades, my transcript. I sent you my information. I wanted to follow up and connect with you to talk a little bit more about you and your program. That'd be a good example of what a solid voicemail would sound like. As far as this would be the hardest part for me, David, is coming prepared with questions, because as a teenager, I probably wouldn't have had any questions. I wouldn't have been even able to think of questions that I would want to say. So you may need to help your student athletes out with this and help them prep with, like, here are some questions you can go in that you want to ask a coach if you're trying to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I think that those questions can be very specific to what's important to you as a student athlete, what's important to you as a family, whether it be the playing time, whether it be the program, whether it be the academic side of things as well. Certain things just to begin that learning process, learning about that program, learning about that coach, learning about maybe their style as a coach, or past student athletes they've recruited from your area. So there's a lot of different types of questions that you can ask in that initial phone call. And there's also some questions to avoid, right? Probably that first conversation with the college coach, you don't want to bring up scholarship money right away, or how much are you going to offer me, or when can I come visit your school? Again, there's a little bit of a feeling out process that needs to happen. It's much like courting somebody of the opposite sex, right? If I'm courting a girl, you need to get to know them first before you just, throw yourself in or asking them out. So very similar when it comes to the recruiting process. So again, don't be afraid to come with a list of questions. Again, do your research about that program. Again, do not just cold call that coach. Don't expect to one day just pick up the phone, call a coach, and they're going to have an hour conversation with you. Coaches are busy. They've got a lot going on in their day. But again, if you can get your information seen in front of those coaches first, and then call them, and they know that name of Kyle Winters, or they know what your name is, then they're maybe more inclined to want to actually pick up the phone and have that conversation. And again, if they do, you need to be prepared. You need to know what questions that you want to ask, what that conversation is going to be like. And again, be prepared to be prepared to answer questions that coach is going to have for you. And again, if they don't answer, which again, I'm guessing the majority of the time, if you don't have something kind of set up or scheduled, again, leave a quality voicemail. It sounds silly, but again, we get voicemails from student athletes all the time where the student athletes are hard to understand, or they're calling in the middle of a game that's loud in the background. Find a quiet space, find a private area that you can really focus And again, leave a quality voicemail. Provide some information about yourself, why you're calling, and a good way to get back in touch with you. Again, it's those little things, especially for younger student athletes, that can separate you from a college coach. So again, don't be afraid to write out a script for a voicemail and read that and take some practice reps with it. It sounds silly, but the more you do it, the more comfortable it's going to be for you, and the more that should help your recruiting process as well. So we talked about emailing coaches. We talked about picking up the phone and calling coaches. A huge piece of obviously recruiting these days, and probably one of the bigger transitions in the recruiting process has been really social media over the last decade or so. Kyle, there's a lot of do's and don'ts when it comes to social media and how to be contacting coaches. What's a big don't here to start?
Yeah, a big don't is do not mass tag coaches in posts, and which, David, maybe after this you have to explain to me what that means. I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media because I don't necessarily see the point of it for myself. I'm not trying to market myself to college coaches at this point, but don't mass tag coaches in posts. Either create individual posts for each coach or coach. If you're able to reach out to coaches through DMs individually, again, probably worth understanding and knowing that that coach may be getting hundreds, maybe thousands of DMs, or maybe getting hundreds or thousands of tags. So it's not necessarily going to be something that they're looking into a ton. But it's a great start. It's another good way to get your name in the front door. It's another way to show a coach who you are and hopefully drive a little bit of attention to yourself. If you have video on, like Instagram or Twitter or whatever it may be, it's another way that coaches can, identify you in the first place. Just by seeing Instagram, just by seeing a video or huddle or whatever it may be, doesn't mean they're going to start recruiting you necessarily, but it's a good way to get your foot in the front door. On top of that, keep it clean. We research student athletes every single day here at NCSA. Do every day we find something that's ridiculous on a student athlete on their Twitter or Facebook, whatever it may be? No, but every now and then we do, and it's not a good sign. It's not going to be a good sign for a college coach either if you have something that's posted that is way over the top or that is inappropriate or anything that's negative. It's not going to be something that helps you. It may be something even that detracts your stock and that keeps a college coach from wanting to take further interest in you or wanting to learn more about you or even look at you in the first place. Lastly, we can follow coaches, team handles. David, I don't know, do you follow anybody on I know you follow verbal commits is a big one that you take a look into. So you probably know a little bit more about following some of these handles than I do, I would say.
I'm a big Twitter guy. When it comes to college basketball world, for sure. And I think with the kind of keeping it clean aspect that Kyle talked about, we've heard stories before where coaches have stopped recruiting student athletes because of something they posted on their social media page. A few years ago, a student athlete had an offer rescinded because they posted something negative on social media. So again, if you're going to have a Twitter page, keep it professional, keep it classy, keep it, again, knowing that coaches may potentially look at that. You don't want something on there that's going to be, again, presenting you in a negative light. What Kyle was talking about is, again, what pretty much every college athletic program has these days is they have their own Twitter page. They have their own page. They post information. They post, game highlights. They post, recaps. They post interviews with their athletes. So it's a great way for you to learn about that program, but to also potentially use that as a way to connect with those programs as well. Most coaches these days have Twitter. Again, some of the maybe old school mindset coaches haven't ventured into that world, but the majority of coaches have Twitter these days. So again, it's just a good opportunity for you to get a peek into their world. What is it? What are they doing as a coach? What's their program doing? If there's players within the program that you could follow to begin to learn about the players within that program, all that's really good information for you to have to learn about that program. So again, if I'm interested in attending Marquette for a basketball, I'm going to follow Shaka Smart. I'm going to follow the Marquette basketball page. I may follow Marquette Athletics, any players they have. Again, for you, it's part of the research of it, but it's also as a way to possibly connect down the road at some point with that as well. So you can learn about their practices, their schedules. You can learn about their facilities, other aspects of the program besides maybe what you already know or what you might see on TV or on their website. So again, some big tips here for social media. Do not mass tag coaches in a post. Don't post your highlight video and then tag 17 coaches in that. That's not a good look. Again, keep it clean, keep it professional. Again, make sure that you're putting information on there that you want to have coaches see. And then again, follow coaches, follow team handles. Great way to learn about the programs, to do your research, to follow information, and just have as much information at your fingertips as possible. So again, these are some tips for, again, contacting coaches. Lots of ways to do it these days. But Kyle, again, I think the importance of this cannot be emphasized enough, to start this process early. And again, don't wait for coaches to follow you. Don't wait until you're a junior or senior to do this. Again, as a freshman or sophomore, you can take that initiative to help get yourself on these coaches' radars.
Yeah, it's the biggest mistake we see every single day. And David, you've been here going on, I think, 10 years now. I'm about 8 years. Maybe you're a little bit longer than that. It's the biggest mistake we've seen over that time is for student athletes or parents just waiting, expecting that a college coach is going to come across them or is going to take notice of them or is going to start see them in a tournament or see them in a showcase, or they're going to come to a high school game, waiting until sophomore year, junior year, senior, just expecting that to happen when, again, it's just reality. It's just not likely that a coach is going to happen across you. It does happen, of course. We all have heard a story about a student athlete did really well at such and such event, and the coaches took notice, and then they got recruited from there. That's what happened with me. I played well at a couple events, but I would say that is not the norm. That's the exception to the norm. So being proactive, even if your student athlete's not someone that you think coaches would want to take seriously right now. They're not looking for a fully grown prospect. They're not looking for someone who's fully developed as a freshman or sophomore or high school, or for a senior, as that matter. You're looking to get a gauge on what you look like right now in hopes of understanding what you might turn into 2-3 years down the road, how you're going to develop, what's your projectability, and are you someone that could be a good fit, so I can keep track of your progress over the next 2 to 3 years. So that's biggest keys. Start now. Don't wait around. Don't just hope things are going to happen to work out. For thousands of student athletes every year, it just doesn't, unfortunately.
Sure. So again, some good tips there, some do's, some don'ts within being proactive, reaching out to coaches. We do have some questions coming in. So let's start with a question we got off of YouTube here from Dave. Kyle, when's the best time during a coach's season to contact them? After a game, day before a game, et cetera? That's a great question in terms of the timing of when to reach out to schools. Again, we know during the season it can be maybe complicated. Coaches have a lot going on with practices and games and schedules and travel. So what advice would you have here in terms of the timing of when to reach out to a college coach?
Yeah, it's going to be much more built around their upcoming like travel seasons, when they're going to be actually out going and doing their recruiting. I used to coach travel softball, so we talk a lot about our student athletes preparing for the upcoming summer season when they're going to be out playing in tournaments and showcases, to be emailing college coaches in the winter and spring in preparation for those upcoming summer months. Just knowing that college softball coaches, they're going to be in their season and inundated with their own practices and games and training and whatever it may be, travel during the spring. They're not going to have as much time to go out and watch student athletes play. But upcoming in the summer, the travel season, that's when they're going to be much more focused on going out and actually watching players that they have identified over the last 6 months to a year or so. That could be players that they were watching last year. They want to see how they developed. It could be someone like your student athlete who's emailing those coaches in December for this upcoming summer season, or emailing right now for this upcoming summer season. But you don't want to wait until a week before a tournament, day before a tournament, in hopes that that's going to drive a coach there, because it's probably too late. They make their travel plans well in advance as well. So it's going to be a lot about getting ahead of it at least a couple months in advance.
Cool. We got some good questions rolling in here. Let's get one from Joy. Joy wants to know, how often should student athletes post on social media? Joy, I don't think there's an exact answer to this question. I think you want to make sure that what you are posting on social media is applicable. I don't think you need to go crazy with it. We see a lot on Twitter of kids posting, other stuff from their teammates, supporting their teammates, which is awesome. So again, I don't think you need to have a specific, like, hey, we should be posting every day, or we should be posting only once a month. I think it's going to fit for you. Obviously, during season, you may post a little bit more, because if you have maybe more highlights or more stats or anything that you should be sharing about yourself, that may be a little bit more active during the season. But even in the off season, you can post training stuff. You can post, inspirational or motivational type stuff. So again, I don't think there needs to be a number in terms of, hey, I need to post twice a week, or I should only post once a month. I think it's just more important of what you're posting having an impact, and being something that is going to, again, be a well representation of you as a student athlete or as a family as well. Let's go to Camino's question here. This is another good one here. Tips on tweet posts, verbiage, or DMs. Kyle, I know one thing that drives us kind of up a wall is when we get texts or emails from families or student athletes that are kind of instead of writing the word you, Y-O-U, they write the letter U. In terms of verbiage, I think that's really important. Again, you want to present this as if you were professionally, putting yourself out there and not being too slangy, I guess.
Yeah, it may actually take some work. You may have to sit down and actually craft a note or craft a message that you're going to send out there versus doing it off your cell phone and just kind of firing it off from the seat of your pants. Because you're not necessarily going to want the abbreviated words like David talked about. You're not going to want to have crazy emojis in there and stuff like that. I mean, kids are going to have that stuff for their friendly posts and whatever it may be. But if it's something to a college coach, if it's something that you're trying to look at and take very seriously, you're going to want a certain decorum to it. You're going to want a certain level of platitude to it to make it look realistic and make it look presentable. Because for a coach, they're also looking at you as a student. And if they're seeing someone who doesn't sound very smart in their posts, they're probably going to worry a little bit about what kind of student athletes is going to be in the classroom. Is this going to be someone I'm having to chase down to go to class and do their homework, all sorts of stuff like that, which may not be the case. It could just be a tweet that they sent out, but you don't want to leave any sort of doubt in those types of scenarios. So with anything like that, just make sure it's cogent, that it reads well, that it's specific. I know Twitter, you have a specific amount of words or characters that you can use. So you may have to spend a couple times revising it, rewriting it to make sure that it makes sense and fits into the specific amount of characters that you have. Might take a little bit of time, but it'll be better for it.
Punctuation, proper commas, periods, capitalizing the right words and right letters. It's crazy, right? But little stuff like that can make a big difference, right? Again, if coaches are getting hundreds of emails or thousands of emails a week or getting tagged or these messages, again, it's that little stuff that can make a difference. And if you're presenting yourself in a professional, mature way as a student athlete, that's going to stand out to college coaches. Good question here from Marie. Her son is currently a junior. They're planning their first visit along with a team practice for a school out of state. Kyle, what advice do you have here for a student athlete junior making their first visit to a college campus to hopefully, connect with some coaches and view a practice as well, which is great.
Yeah, hopefully to take a step back, you guys have connected with the coaches there and you have a plan to meet them, get a tour of the facilities, see the school, hopefully not just going to just see the school on your own. If you are, that's okay. That's not a problem. But I would still try and connect with the admissions department or the sports department and see if you can set up a conversation with them or get to know them or meet them. But similar to what we talked about with emails and phone calls, come with a list of questions you want to ask the coach about the program, about the school, about the facilities, about majors, about the team, about his players, her players, the classes that they take. Make sure the student athlete comes prepared to talk. I went on a visit with my youngest sister, who's now 21, to a school for softball many years ago. And she just basically walked around mute the entire time. She didn't say a single word. My other sister and myself, we had to ask the coaches all the questions or try and push them through her. And it wasn't necessarily the greatest look. It ended up being fine. But she just didn't look as prepared or professional as she would want to be. Whereas she could have come in with some questions, with some ideas, with some thoughts. Again, that may take a little bit of preparation beforehand, but it'll make you look that much better on the back end in front of those college coaches. They'll be impressed that your student athlete took the time and is engaged, and they'll want your student athlete more. It's gonna raise your stock as a player.
Cool. Got a question here from Dean regarding, again, kind of the timing behind some of this stuff. In your experience, are coaches available? Are they on campus during the summer? Or would you recommend calling them Zoom calls during the summer? This is very dependent, I would say. Again, a lot of college coaches, they're certainly going to be around in some capacity. They're not just disappearing for the summer. They may have a vacation plan. They may have stuff like that. But also, summer is a big time for coaches to be out and about evaluating talent, going to different tournaments, checking out camps, all that sort of stuff. They may be hosting camps themselves. So college coaches will be around in the summer. Kyle, I think it goes back to your point. You don't just want to show up and hope that a college coach is going to be there. But again, in the summertime, you can have that. And again, college coaches do use the summer as a time when they can maybe bring kids onto campus, knowing the kids have maybe a little bit more free time and flexibility as well. So again, summer can be a good time for recruiting. Again, the timing of it's just make sure you're communicating with those coaches ahead of time. They're going to let you know what their availability is. If if they're willing to have you on campus. But just showing up to a campus in the summer, hoping a coach is going to be there, probably not the best approach.
Not a great bet. My middle sister, I just referenced a couple minutes ago, she is a college softball coach now, and her schedule during the summer is much more minimized as far as like time in office at the school, shorter hours, less days a week. There's not necessarily as much of a need to be there, and she can do a lot of the recruiting type of stuff from home. They're going to be out at tournaments and showcases, whatever it may be. So yeah, exactly like David talked about. They may have free time while they're there, but it's about making sure that they're going to be there in the first place. Wouldn't want you guys to waste a visit or waste time or money going to a school trying to meet a coach, and the coach ends up not even being there.
Yeah, and recruiting is really a year-round thing for college coaches these days. So even during the season, again, coaches are busy, but they're having kids come on campus, during their seasons. That's a big lure. They're trying to get them out at a game and to meet the team and maybe see a practice or get an opportunity to get a little bit more interaction. So again, year-round recruiting type thing. Again, I think the biggest thing is communicate with those coaches ahead of time, figure out when they're going to be there. And again, if you can plan a time to meet with them, that's going to be a much smoother process versus just showing up and hoping that they're going to have time to connect with you or even, want to connect with you if they don't know who you are as a student athlete. So again, a lot of great questions. Appreciate those as well. I hope you guys took away some great tips here that we have. Again, our website, ncsasports.org. So if you're looking for more information on ways to contact student athletes, or again, just kind of get your profile started, get that ball rolling for your student athlete, great way to start that, ncsasports.org, or drop us a line. We'll be more than happy to reach out to you guys individually as well to talk specifically about where you're at with your situation. But Kyle, let's ring our bell here. Let's honor some of our recent NCSA commits, one of our favorite pieces here at NCSA.
Awesome. Starting things off today with Caitlin Callahan. Caitlin is a volleyball player. She actually graduated high school in 2020. She was playing at Millersville University in Pennsylvania, which is a Division II school. Things were going fine there. She was doing all right. She actually contacted and got recruited by Millersville through her NCSA profile, but it wasn't exactly what she wanted it to be. And something we talk about a lot is the transfer portal, which can be risky. And even just in some of the notes and conversations with her, it was something that hey, you can do this, but there's a little bit of risk to it. She went ahead and made that jump and ended up being able to transfer to University of North Carolina, Wilmington. She emailed with those coaches directly through her profile. They viewed her profile. Overall, she had 170 emails opened by college coaches in the entire span of 2018 through 2022. But unique situation here where she was able to get recruited twice through NCSA. So congrats to you, Caitlin, and best of luck to you at Wilmington.
Seahawks.
I wouldn't have known that. I played with baseball.
You spent some time in North Carolina playing ball, so I thought maybe you know that one.
I played with two guys that played at Wilmington, but I had no idea that they were the Seahawks.
Well, now you'll always remember UNC Wilmington Seahawks. Cool. Congratulations to Caitlin. Another interesting one here. Hockey is a different recruiting process. Jackson Blau, he's actually a 2021 high school graduate, so he graduated last spring. But with a lot of hockey athletes, what they'll do is they'll play a year of juniors hockey, maybe 2 years of juniors hockey before making the jump to the college level. That's what Jackson did. He spent a year playing juniors and was able to commit to Concordia University in Ann Arbor. Jackson's born and raised in Michigan, so staying close to home. I do want to read just some quick feedback that his family sent in to us. Hockey was such a different path than most other high school sports. Alec has been so valuable. We could have never navigated all of this by ourselves. Alec is Alec Theda, one of our hockey recruiting coaches. So again, the guidance and the support that our recruiting coaches provide to families to help them navigate this process is always important as well. Last one that we have a student athlete named Kendall Kerr. Kendall is a golfer, as you can tell, and she's made her college decision heading to Southern Nazarene University. So she'll be swinging the clubs for 4 years there at Southern Nazarene University. Kyle, I know you had some more information on the student athlete, I believe.
Yeah, Kendall, great golfer. David, you and I would not want to play with her. She scored, her average is 75, a little over 75 right now. So she's a stick to say the least. A lot of people out there think, hey, you're a women's golfer. You can just, be any score and go play anywhere you want. But, it's much more competitive than people think. So she's headed to Southern Nazarene University, which is a Division II school. She had some big hopes of going to a Division I school, which is totally understandable. We talked a little bit with her about, maybe Division II might be a little better fit. So she emailed with Southern Nazarene University. She emailed with quite a few Division I schools as well. Over 311 emails opened by college coaches just overall. It sounds like she's going to be headed to the Southern Nazarene University, and it seems like it's going to be a really good fit for her. So we're really pumped for Kendall as well. Congrats.
I've shot a 75 before. It was like through 13 holes, but I mean.
Totally.
Yes.
I mean, I've probably gotten close to that on 9.
All right. Well, so congratulations to the commits. And again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're back here every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time to have a little discussion about the recruiting process, hopefully provide some information, education, and maybe a little bit of entertainment as well. So Kyle, big thank you to you as always for your knowledge and your information. And hopefully we'll see everyone back here next Tuesday. Take care.